welcome to edSpective News. I'm Kevin Joa. Accusations about alleged election tampering by Conservative Party officials via the Robo-Call scandal have revealed a sordid history of current cabinet ministers using underhanded methods to get their way in childhood and beyond. Tara Jane Murphy is our correspondent on this story. She is in Ottawa. Tara Jane.
Thanks, Kevin. Retired kindergarten teacher Mrs. Smiley always had her suspicions about how little Stevie H got to the front of the snack line every day.
Well, he and his pals were the only ones standing in front of the cracker tray on most days, scarfing down the cheese before the other children arrived. 25 kids looking for snacks in the bathroom seemed odd at the time, but I now think I know the real story. Little Bobby Johnson said someone whispered into his ear that the juice station was moved down the hall. I thought he was just a little slow, but there may have been more to it.
It was always somewhere different. The principal's office, the library, the playground. We'd all run out there, and by the time we got back, the snacks were all gone. The nutritional deficiency of those years led to a lifetime of emotional and intellectual problems. I'm 51 and I've been unemployed for 25 years. And this guy's prime minister? That sure sucks.
That's really troubling, Tara Jane, but isn't it possible that this is just a one-off coincidence?
Perhaps, Kevin. It turns out that Stevie H blamed most of the incidents on the quiet kid in class, calling him a bleeding heart socialist. But meanwhile, I was able to talk to Jim O'Grady, who has never recovered from a missed opportunity back in high school.
I had my scholarship for track and field all lined up at UCLA, but the night before the big race, I get this phone call from the Ontario Federation of Secondary School Athletics telling me the meet has been moved from Guelph to Sarnia. So I'm running in a farmer's field, and Tony Clement, he wins provincial gold. He couldn't even run fast, but he was the only guy who showed up to the meet. Now, as president of the Treasury Board, he gets to cut billions of dollars of services that I need to feed myself. Darn that guy.
It is sounding like more of a trend all the time. But was this instance really Tony Clement's fault after all?
Yes, Kevin. It turns out that he blamed first some unnamed officials for the misunderstanding, but then later he backtracked and said he had made the decision in consultation with his friends. But finally, I spoke with Pete McFuddle, who is still fuming about losing the girl back in university.
I spent months wooing Chrissy Elliott, and I finally convinced her to go with me to the disco. I was putting on my bell-bottoms and trying to find my platforms when I got a phone call from someone purporting to be Chrissy's roommate, telling me she wanted to go out and see Hello Dolly instead. The movie stank, and Chrissy went to the disco with Jimmy Flaherty. That jerk got the girl and the ability to give his friends jobs at the refugee board for $130K a year. Not fair.
Yes, Tara Jane, but isn't it possible that all of these situations could have turned out the exact same way anyway?
Well, maybe, Kevin. It's possible. When I spoke to Mrs. Smiley, she said that little Stevie H, by the end of 8 months of eating all the snacks every day, was by far the slowest child in the class, so it's unlikely that he would have
still been to the front of the line towards the end. Tony Clement's gold medal winning 100-meter dash time was 3 minutes and 37 seconds, so
But really, I mean, O'Grady could have tripped on a banana peel or been mauled by a cougar escaped from the zoo. Isn't that possible, Tara Jane?
yes, perhaps. The most likely is that Jim Flaherty would still have gotten the girl, his current wife, Christine Elliott. It turns out that Flaherty had launched a year-long campaign against McFuddle, calling him a not very good disco dancer, very bad in bed, and a child porn addict.
Those campaigns sure do work.
They do indeed. They do indeed, Kevin.
Now, how do we get to the bottom of this issue, Tara Jane?
Yes, well, it turns out this is out of Elections Canada's jurisdiction, but a spokesperson for all three ministers did say that they do take the issue seriously, blah, blah, blah.
Now, Tara Jane, isn't that editorializing a little bit?
No, actually, Kevin, they actually said blah, blah, blah. What you gonna do about it? That was how they put it in the end there.
Oh, well, thank you then, Tara Jane.
No problem, Kevin.
That's Tara Jane Murphy. She's in Ottawa. Well, we have one last part of this story. We did get an official response from the government. In the end, it says, Mr. Harper / Clement / Flaherty know nothing of the misleading phone calls in question, but he assumes that someone acting alone is responsible. Once he determines the identity of said person, that person will no longer be in the employ of the Conservative Party of Canada. Any further inquiry should be forwarded to the perpetrators, care of the Refugee Board of Canada. That's what we have from the government. We'll be right back with more edSpective news.